The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The travel restrictions over the countries with recorded cases of the new variants of COVID-19 will be lifted tomorrow. This is according to Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles. But Immigration Bureau Commissioner Jaime Morente clarifies that all travel restrictions prior to the ban authorized to deter the entry of the new COVID variants remain in place. Nograles added that the IATF resolution lifting the travel ban also outlined conditions for foreign nationals entering the Philippines by February 1. He says entry of foreign nationals will be subject to the maximum capacity of inbound passengers at the port and date of entry. Most Filipinos have expressed support for other modes of transportation, such as walking and biking, based on the latest SWS survey. The poll showed that 87% of Filipinos believe that local roads will be better if public transportation, bicycles, and pedestrians are given priority over private vehicles. Only 6% disagreed, while the remaining 7% was undecided. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said that the results of the survey showed the public's support to efforts promoting active transport. WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus called on the world to use vaccines in a fair and effective way. This after the WHO noted that COVID cases are at a record high. He pointed out efforts are being made worldwide to research and develop, approve, and manufacture more COVID-19 vaccines. But he adds that because vaccines are a limited resource, he is calling on all the countries to use them as effectively and fairly as they can.
The pandemic has exposed and exploited the inequalities of our world. There is now real danger that the very tools that could help to end the pandemic, vaccines, may exacerbate those same inequalities. Vaccine nationalism might serve short-term political goals, but it's ultimately short-sighted and self-defeating. We will not end the pandemic anywhere until we end it everywhere.
World Bank says global growth this year could be less than half of their 4% estimate if COVID-19 vaccine distribution doesn't move quickly. Chief economist Carmen Reinhardt speaks on Bloomberg's The Year Ahead virtual summit. Let's listen in.
Certainly, so much hinges on the success of vaccines in terms of the potential for a recovery. I mean, you mentioned, we have our forecasts out there saying growth is about 4%. But look, if the dispersion around that is significant. You could see significantly higher growth if everything goes very smoothly in terms of global distribution of vaccines, or you could see less than half of that if the process is bogged down and doesn't quite have the speedy outreach that is hoped for. So in especially with renewed surges in infections and new variants of the virus, now another fresher source of concern. I could see the political willingness and international cooperation that could lead to moving in the direction of another allocation for this year. Yes, under these conditions, it's possible.
The pandemic has fueled a surge in online investing. Sarawak co-founder Nadine Mezer talks to Bloomberg Daybreak Middle East to discuss this trend. Let's listen in.
2020 in general has been a roller coaster, but when it comes to investing, we've seen a very positive impact at Sarwa. We've seen last year around 400% growth, and that's due to the pandemic, highlighting two main characteristics. The first one being, of course, the ease of use of a digital platform, because today's consumers are really looking for everything that's convenient and practical, and Sarwa really delivers on that. We're a digital platform, as you mentioned, and that makes it very easy for someone to do the full digital onboarding in just a few minutes. So that was really the main characteristic first. So we saw an influx of new customer, and it continued into 2021. And at the same time, Yusuf, in the first part of 2020 with the market crash, a lot of people actually had a big question mark on robo-advisors specifically, because they expected clients to panic sell, which really did not happen. On the contrary, we actually saw an increase from our own client base when it comes to redeposits, and really very good behavior on that front.
Do you describe yourself more as a wealth manager in the making or an asset manager in the digital space?
I would say we're both. We are actually, we have started in the IFC at the FinTech Hive in 2017 as the first entity to be regulated under the FSA when it comes specifically to that space. So we are a robo-advisor, what's known as a robo-advisor. So we have started as wealth advisory, and now we actually moved. So we're regulated in both the FSA and FSRA in Abu Dhabi. And we have a category 4 and a category 3, which makes us really wealth managers also. And we're expanding. So slowly we're expanding into the region. We just very recently received our permits and license from CMA, so Capital Market Authority in Saudi. And that's going to be our next expansion into the new market.
And we'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Over 350 drug suspects were killed in alleged shootouts with authorities during the community quarantine. Citing data from the government's Real Number PH, the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency said that more than 37,900 drug pushers and users were arrested since the start of the lockdown in March last year. Over 400 minors with suspected links to illegal drugs were also caught, of which around 280 were pushers, while 80 were users. In total, more than 6,000 suspects were killed in operations since President Duterte launched his war on drugs. Meanwhile, National Police Commission Vice Chairman Vitaliano Aguirre vowed to institute policies that would reform the PNP, which has been accused of violating human rights and other irregularities. Aguirre warns rogue police officers to stop their illegal activities, as he will hold them accountable for their actions. Among the reforms he is pushing is for the review of resolutions of NAPOLCOM's regional appellate boards on acquitting cops accused of administrative offenses. For the longest time, humans have been dependent on fossil fuel to power our everyday lives. But can the world ever live without it? Let's watch this report by Bloomberg Quick Take.
You're not as addicted to fossil fuels as you think. There's a number that many throw around. They say 80% of the world's energy comes from fossil fuels. We're addicted to these sources of energy, they say, and we won't be able to wean ourselves off them easily. The number is correct, but the interpretation? Maybe not. Much of the energy from fossil fuels is simply lost as waste heat and noise. As Shakespeare would put it, just sound and fury signifying nothing. For example, electric cars travel 3 times further than gasoline-powered cars for the same amount of energy they consume. Crazy, right? Fossil fuel cars waste a lot of energy as heat. There are even drivers who can cook a good meal using the waste heat of an internal combustion engine. Much of that waste is inevitable. Burning fossil fuels can never be 100% efficient. But the world cares about doing things with energy, not the waste. Experts find that even though fossil fuels generate 80% of the world's primary energy, they produce only 60% of its useful energy. Why should we care about these dry matters of how energy wonks measure things? Because misunderstanding these numbers dramatically overplays how difficult it will be to meet global clean energy goals. Solar and wind do not need to replace the waste heat produced in a coal or gas power plant. So clean energy sources have to produce only a fraction of the total energy that comes from fossil fuels to do the same amount of useful work. For example, coal burned today to generate electricity makes up 15% of the world's primary energy. But it only produces 5% of useful energy. Thus, solar and wind only need to replace the 5% and not the 15%. So next time you hear someone say that humanity is addicted to fossil fuels, which provide 80% of our energy, you'll know what to tell them. Overcoming this addiction is going to be easier than our outdated numbers make it seem. This is Net Zero. I'm Akshat Rathi. Follow us on QuickTake and Bloomberg.
Teaching robots to dance with fluid and expressive motions was a new challenge for Boston Dynamics. So how did they do it? Let's watch this.
We started by hiring a choreographer and some dancers, and we worked out the idea for what some music might be that would be good, and some dance steps that would be interesting to watch. So then we had to program up the various moves, the mashed potatoes, the twist, the running man, as you've seen in the video. And then we made it so that we could string those together in order to do the performance. Atlas and I are about the same. We're about 165 pounds. Project let us look at the physicality of the robot. It turned out that we needed to upgrade the robot in the middle of the development in order for it to be strong enough and to have enough energy to do the whole performance without stopping. We developed the motion programming tools, the ones that let it reconcile balance, bouncing, and the fact that it's doing a performance all at the same time. There's also a camera on the side, another one in the back. This is a butt cam, another one on this side. So this robot can see in all directions. The robot has about 28 actuators, muscles, built into it. And every one of those actuators has sensors that let the robot understand how it's posed. The feet can feel the ground, which is really important for doing any of these behaviors. The arms have sensors in them. And those things all work together so that the robot understands where it is in the motion. We hoped it that people would enjoy it, and they seem to have.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 12 noon as we continue the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.